Have you played around with Gemini, this model that is released by Google and it's available to you as an app on gemini.google.com? This allows you to do conversational interface with generative AI. So I'm assuming that you have played around with this, and if not, you should go today and try it out. But some of you might be developers, and my videos are generally focused on developers as well. So we will today explore how can you start using these Gemini API, and this will be the theme of this video and some upcoming videos around exploring Gemini for developer use cases, or how can actually developers start using it for all kinds of use cases. So let's start with AI Studio. So this is at the URL aistudio.google.com. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it's easier for others to see in here as well. So this is the page that you will come in when you go to AI Studio. This is your prompt builder interface where you can come in and give it a new name of the prompt. You can add system instructions in here in plain English and various details. So we'll just walk through all of these details. What do they mean? And yeah, let's walk through those. So what is prompt? Prompt is essentially when you ask the model something. So I'm just going to do what's 2 plus 2. This is a prompt. Anything that you can write in here. And write, and you can also of course include images in here. You can record your audio, record samples, you can use sample videos and sample images as well. And one thing that I like about Google's AI Studio here is I can send this in without running the Gemini right now, running the model on top of it. Okay, so what does it mean to run a model on top of it? So there's a model here which takes this as input, and these are different models that you can pick from. There's Pro here, there's Ultra, there's Pro with 2 million context, and different things in here. What does it actually mean here, 2 million context? So context is essentially how many tokens can it use. Right now we see it's saying 9 out of a million tokens. This 9 is essentially the token that it takes to convert this text into something that the model can understand. So essentially, an easy way to think about tokens is when you write some words, it converts it into a machine readable format. Those are essentially the same words. There's a really good video by Andre Karpathy around tokens, and you should watch that. But essentially, for short, for normal use cases where you are not a machine learning developer, all you need to worry about is there's a conversion between text into tokens. Okay, so those are tokens, and we see we are using Gemini 1.5 Flash, so we have 1 million plus token window here that we can use. Right now, there's a temperature here, which is set to 1. So these models use temperature, or you can understand temperature or use temperature as a way to guide model around how creative should it be. So if you go to 0, it will try to be least creative. If you go to 1, it's going to be more creative. You can also add stop sequences. So this is helpful if you're trying to generate a list of items and you want to stop at, let's say, number 5. So you can do that. And whenever it encounters number 5 like this, it will stop the sequence or stop the generation. So you could, of course, click here when it's generating to stop the responses, but you will see a different button here. But this will allow you to programmatically stop this. I'm going to move this out of the way. Okay. The best thing that I like about Gemini here is these safety settings. So you have ability to do safety settings on top of this where based upon the output that's being generated, it can categorize it based upon these different categories around harassment, hate, sexually explicit, or dangerous content. And then you can decide how much do you want to block it. Or like this is essentially saying that it thinks that it's harmful. But should you block all harmful content that it thinks versus should you try to be more restrictive on the blocking, or should you try to block nothing in there? We will leave the settings as default. There's of course most advanced settings where most of the developers, they want to return the model output in JSON, so you can use this, and top P here as well. To better understand some of these examples, I tend to go to this example here in the forum where it talks about exactly how these parameters work and what you can think about when it comes to a normal developer. So I like to use this example when I'm talking about how these different things work together. Okay, so now that we have our prompt in here, let's get started with actually starting to use the model. So when I click on run, the model takes that input and tries to give me an output here. You see our token count has increased. The reason it has increased is because we have new outputs here as well. So all of this conversation is part of this token right here. I can change the model in the middle, but I'm assuming with 1.0 Ultra, I'm not going to get any different outputs in here. So I can just rerun this, and you will see, hopefully the answer is very similar. So actually, there's a difference here. It just gave me the answer rather than giving the whole solution. Of course, it might depend based upon what you're trying to get, but we could also ask it to return the output in JSON. Let's see what it does do. What does it do? Oh, very interesting. So various features might not be available depending upon the model type. So it seems like Flash is the one which has output in JSON, but Ultra does not have output in JSON right now available. So let's go back to Flash. I love Flash. It's fast. Okay, as that input was always there. Okay, we rerun this with Flash and it gives me the answer in JSON. So this is what we were talking about, getting the answer in JSON. Temperature doesn't vary much here because we are going with a mathematical-ish answer. So I don't think it will cause it to be very different. Okay, so this is how generally prompting works. So actually, let's go take a look at various other prompts. So I went through and did some examples here. I start here with a simple text prompt by asking, how far is moon from Earth today? So I like how the model gave me the response that it can't really give me the exact distance because it constantly changes, because moon is orbiting our planet and it's not a spherical orbit. Earth is also moving. There's so many things that are happening. So since it could not give me, it mentioned here that there is a moon distance calculator from some websites. So I was very curious. I asked it to say, actually, can you write a Python code for that? So this is going into more details about the model itself, where of course the model can generate text to text, from text to text. It can also generate from text to code. And this is the code that it generated. Of course, I'm always using Flash in here. So this is the model. It generated the whole moon distance calculator here. I actually have not tried to look into this, but I'm assuming some of these constants are coming from some reputable sources. And yeah, it's a big elliptical longitude that it's trying to generate and identify the orbit and then calculates the distance. Um, and I have no idea what is going on with the Julian dates in here, but it does all of those. Why am I? Oh, double clicked it. So I double clicked it, which allowed me to start editing this. Sorry about that. Okay, so we go down. It actually does the whole explanation of why it's using what, all the different details in here, and it can give you the output. Again, this is again an approximation. More precise calculation means requiring more astronomical tables to get up-to-date information. Then this is just a generation of text to code. Then I wanted to show you an example of giving it code and asking to write test for it. So from code to code. So I gave it a test function in here and asked it to write tests for it. So it generates different types of tests versus where like there's nothing in the array, there's all positive values, negative values, and floating numbers as well. So it did a fairly comprehensive test summary in here, and it also describes all the different tests that are happening in here. And on top of that, gave me details on how to run these tests. These are in Node.js right now. This is the one that I really enjoy. Sometimes you go to different websites and you see some interesting piece of code being used, but you don't understand exactly why that is happening. So you can take the code and you can ask Gemini to purify it and explain the code by adding comments to it. And of course, adding tests. Tests are best way to learn how the code works. So this is a really easy-ish hash function where it uses prime numbers to figure out or generate a hash. So I asked it to generate the hash in here. It wrote the whole function program. So this is essentially taking a minified code and converting it into a beautiful-ish looking code. I don't say beautiful, but we call this beautified code. And then it, of course, adds text for it. And you can use those texts to figure out what are the different hashes being generated are. It also goes into more details around how the function actually works itself. Then you can also ask more questions on top of that function. So this is Q&A on top of your code or any code that you find. So I asked, why are the numbers chosen the way they are chosen? And it goes into a little bit more details, but in short, it's choosing those because of their property of being odd and prime numbers, which helps in creating a more diverse and robust hash function. So yeah, works really well across all text use cases. I wanted to show you some more different use cases, which is multimodality. So Gemini Flash by itself is multimodal, so you can pass in different kinds of inputs in here. I passed an image in here of Gemini constellation and asked it to tell me a bit more about the image. Tells me about that there's a constellation of Gemini in here. Evergreen trees are available as well, such as that photographer is in a forest. So I asked it to, this is a very interesting use case. I have another video more in more detail about this is output the bounding box for the Gemini in this image. So it did the output, but I did not like it. So I asked it to give me the output in a JSON format and using these values. So it actually did the whole process of generating those outputs with XY coordinates. So you can essentially draw a bounding box around this Gemini here. Then this is a board game from last night where I was playing board games with friends and I passed it the image of Catan board here. So I actually asked it what is going on in this image. So it identified that it's a game of Settlers of Catan in progress, and it talks about exactly how the game is set up. I asked it to do the best position on the for the first placement. It did give me all the different details around how you should pick, but it did not give me a right answer. There's 9 and 11 tiles for, it's telling me brick, wood, and sheep. There's no such tile in here. 9, 11, and 6 are these forest and brick, not sheep. There's no sheep around here on those tiles. Either way, it did a good job. But then I thought, can it actually write a program to define the or to determine the best placement? Because we have a lot of board games that are online, like Catan is a board game that's available online as well. So it actually generated a fairly complex-ish program in here to determine the best settlement, and this is how it's representing the settlement right now on like different tiles with different numbers. I'm just gonna continue. This is all model which did that, and then it gives us the best settlement positions. So of course it goes in here to talk about like there's more advanced evaluations like proximity to harbors, road connections, some strategic considerations around what to do, what not to do based upon your opponents as well. All of those things are not available here, and of course game state awareness will be a bigger challenge in here, but it essentially gives us the whole thing. So oftentimes this has been a really good approach where if the model itself can't generate something, you should try to generate a program for it, and then these programs are much more, because the inputs and outputs in these programs are well defined, and with that well-defined problem statement comes the solution is much more defined. And actually, I did not ask it to write any test cases on this, but you could ask it to write test cases and based upon that, do an iterative feedback to find the solution, the best solution in here. So yeah, that's the other one. And then I wanted to show you this video use case here where I recorded my screen while I was just browsing around different sites in San Francisco for a friend. And I just looked around different locations in San Francisco, browsed through Google, and just recorded the whole screen. Then I asked them, I uploaded the video in here. So of course you can upload the video by just going in here, over here, and then upload to Drive, or just picking a video directly from your Drive. So I uploaded this video, and then I asked it to list out or build an itinerary for a weekend in SF. Note that it converted that video into tokens itself as well. So there's 17,000 tokens that are part of that video. And then it created a whole itinerary for the weekend in SF based upon that video. Now, this whole thing, actually, there's a good itinerary here. But then I was like, okay, this is a good point, but can you actually generate the transcript of the video in a CSV format? So in the video, I'm also doing a voice overlay. And I'm just talking about random stuff in here. And this is all the transcript of that video. Complete transcript is available here. So again, this might not be great if you are using specific terms, like something that is part of your vocabulary as a doctor or as an engineer, electrical engineer, stuff like that. Those might not be captured well here, but otherwise it does a pretty good job at getting the transcripts out of the videos itself. And of course, you can, if there were facial features in here, you could try asking for more details, and we will explore some of those in the future. Okay, I wanted to show you this example as well, where I was testing the multimodal example. with Gemini and I asked it to generate an ASCII image of Gemini constellation. I think model got stuck into some random random issue where it started generating. I was like, okay, this is going somewhere. I just don't know where it's going. And then suddenly it gets to this point where it just ding 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 ding. And yeah, sometimes it gets stuck. But that's the beauty of it is sometimes it will get stuck, but oftentimes it will surprise you as well. So surprises are on both ends, good and bad. Okay. Um, Another thing I wanted to show you is here the team has done a good job at generating a prompt gallery for you. So this is a prompt gallery of all the different prompts that you can use. These are just samples for you to get started. And of course, you can find or build more of your own prompts and use those. These are some of the things that the team has generated for you. So I went through some of those, and those are good to show you some examples in here. So here's a very raw text that somebody used, and they wanted to convert this into a structured output. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this article and convert it into a structured output with 3 columns. We're looking for activity, best season to partake in that activity, and amount of time needed. We use Gemini Flash in here, and here's the complete output of that, where it talks about the activity, best time to do it, and the time needed to do it. This is a really good way to convert this very structured, very wordy details in here into something that's very easy to comprehend and digest in here for the end users. Another example here, I think we already talked about this in my example where we talked about object detection, but here it's going for more details rather than just looking at the object and giving you bounding boxes. It's doing the complete output generation. So we'll generate the response in here. In this case, it will take the image that is on this side is Allen wrench, and it generates the output here. You could do this with multiple examples in here and generate the response for all of those in one go. Of course, a lot of people are also using these for modifying tone. So here's a blurb for a startup event, and this blurb is randomish, not great. People want to convert it into more professional tone, and you can run this to see a complete event details in here with more, like this is a complete event email that you can send out to different companies. Um, Last but not the least, you can look at sentiment as well. And this is similar to entity extraction, or essentially where the text can be comprehended by the model and then it can assign a label to it or extract certain items from this. So a lot of NLP tasks that were there, you can do most of them right now with these Gen AI models. The cost and probably accuracy would be better on using the NLP based models, but I am starting to think of this as a very good base on to start from, where your vocabulary might be very different, and things that you're trying to extract, like entities that you're trying to extract, or sentiment analysis is fairly easy because it's going to be positive, negative, or neutral, or you can do 5 categories max. Or you might want to do this in a number where it's rather than 5 specific categories. It's a more 0 to 1 scale where it goes from 0.1 to 1 to 1. So it slowly increases as well, rather than just being defined categories. So what I was trying to come to is it really helps with these models, with these Gen AI models, to start with a baseline, and you can generate a lot of data from here to train your own models, or it gives you a good baseline and you can start using this today. And if you really need to build something, then you can build a model based upon your vocabulary for entity extraction, for example. So yeah, this also works, and it is already done where it uses the text and gives us the sentiment of that text. There's a lot more prompts. Give them a try. If you have some amazing prompts, share them with me. I would love to see. Like this regex one is very interesting because I often get stuck into regex and trying to get the responses out of that. Similarly with time complexity, when you're a developer, you're trying to figure out the time complexity of a function, and often I'll keep editing and editing a function over and over, and I want to see how the time complexity has either decreased or increased, and those kind of things would be really helpful. So yeah, lot of different prompts for you to play around, but don't let these be the boundary of your creativity. Try out a lot more that you can do. And yeah, this was the first video on Gemini Exploration. Hopefully we will have more coming in Probably in next few videos, I'm gonna start looking deeper into code on how you can start using this in code, and we'll probably start on Colab. But until then, thank you so much for joining in and have a great rest of your day.